So one of the things that I just think is helpful for any entrepreneur is early on identifying your superpower. Early on, you need to figure out what are just like your top 3 to 5. Number one, figure out what's like your top thing, and then figure out like 3 to 5 other things. And we're not going into, I know some of you are like a jack of all trades. We're not talking about all that. We're talking about count on one hand, like your top 5 things that are like your superpower, what you do well, what you can outdo almost anybody in. And like ultimately what will be your superpower in business and how you outdo the competition. And sidebar, but not sidebar, as you kind of think about getting into hiring staff and having people work for you and managing people, that's a great question to ask people during the interview. That's a great way to get to know people, is to really figure out what their strong suit is and what's their superpower. But identify that early on. I've said this a couple different times during this podcast, but it's just as much a journey of self-discovery as it is learning about business, as it is doing business. Business is so in line with like self-discovery, because you just have so much to learn about how you learn and how you work with people and how you deal with failure, how you deal with mistakes, how you bounce back, how you problem solve. It's so many things. It teaches you so much about yourself. I know a lot of people may not love like the baby comparison, but honestly, in all of my years, I've never heard a more accurate comparison to what a business is, in so many ways. And to kind of piggyback off of that, kids teach you so much. They teach you so much about yourself. They teach you so much about how you communicate. They teach you so much about love, about life, about just so much. And I feel the same way with business. Like business, it teaches you so much. That's why I really like entrepreneurs, because we have a kind of unspoken kindred spirit kind of thing when I meet other entrepreneurs who are doing it on a huge scale, entrepreneurs who are simply just comfortable and living their lives, but very quietly, very successful, and entrepreneurs who are just beginning, just starting. They just have a little glisten, little, light in their eyes, and they're just getting started on this journey. And it's still there. That spark is still there. But identifying some of my superpowers, one that is really, really huge for me, and I think this should be on every owner's top 5, CEO's top 5, any entrepreneur top 5. I feel like I research the mess out of everything. Like I feel like I out research everybody on that topic. And I think that's what's so important when you hear people talk about niches. And I know the whole business jargon, it goes back and forth. Some people say the riches are in the niches, the niches. But like some people also say, well, hey, the more the merrier. You cast a big net and you pull in what you can. It really all depends. I think that's whether to go wide or go narrow. I think it all depends on the industry, your business, and you. I think those components have a lot to do with which way you go. But there is always a benefit in going narrow, going right to your audience, going very, very specific into what you do, finding the people who are looking for what you are doing, and really kind of like focusing in on that area. But you got to out research people. Whatever it is that you're doing, just throw yourself into that world for a good like 6 to 8 months. Because I mean, a lot of times it's not that you're like waiting for anything. In that time, you might be working another job. You might be doing a app-based gig. You may be doing something else, but use that time to just research the mess out of your business. Like, you should be able to talk for hours about your business if you had to. You should be able to lead a class or a seminar talking about your business if you had to. If you were doing a show, like a competitive type of show where you had to hurry up and hit the buzzer, and your competitors were all in their little booths and they had buzzers when those questions came in, you should be able to be the first one that's hitting the buzzer, answering all of your questions. Like, you just want to be so good, and you want to stay curious. If you have questions, find out. You can find people, you can find resources. Don't leave any stones unturned. Just throw yourself into it, because now's the time. Once the business gets started, once daily operations get going, and once cash flow is coming in, and maybe you have employees, maybe you're doing, if you're here, you're probably more so interested in a concession-based type of business, or maybe a mobile food truck, or, mobile type business. But even if you do, have aspirations to have a brick and mortar store or whatever it is like that, get in there. Get in that world, learn everything that you can. Any second that unless I like told myself like, oh, today is going to be an off day, I spent the whole day looking through videos on YouTube, looking through interviews, looking through different companies and their marketing. And then I would look at their video on YouTube, and then I would go to their website. And then on their website, I'm listening to what kind of verbiage they're using. I'm looking at what kind of colors they're using. What do their prices look like? What are the top machines that professionals are using in my field? What is the standard? When my industry professionals get together, where do they go? Where do they meet? Is there a big get together? Is there a big convention? Is there a big, Las Vegas event or something that takes place? These are the things that you want to know. And throwing yourself in, it just makes sense. I kind of got thrown into this, but my partner has always wanted to do a food truck, which is why I think slowly this channel is really turning into it's always going to be business, but I really think this series is kind of focusing in on concession-based type businesses. This is huge now. And even when you look at like, mobile food trucks and things like that, like mobile food businesses, that world is huge too. Everyone is hopping on the bandwagon of doing a truck or doing a van or a bicycle. It's huge. So hop on that bandwagon. And I also just thought about something now, but it was just a passing thought as I was talking. But when you really start thinking about like what area you're going to be working in, and I think this is like really important for the concession business and people who are getting into it, events are probably going to be a huge thing for anyone getting into this business, because it's kind of how everybody starts. And it's how a lot of people just continue running their business. It just becomes a permanent part of their business plan because the events are so lucrative. You even have situations where people get so much notoriety and there's so much public demand that they will even pay you to come out and make money at the event. So there are free events that you can do and make money, which is always a plus, because if you cover your gas and maybe you cover your staffing, or if you are working the booth or you or your partner or whatever, you don't have really any costs. You just have your inventory, you come there, you sell, you pack up, you go home. So events are always such a big piece of the pie for the concession business. Don't feel it can get overwhelming. The way I kind of looked at it, and this is why I like doing my podcast with you guys every day, because it's so much information that I just told myself, you know what, if I do a podcast every day for just the first year of this journey, it will just be so much information, because I can literally take you guys along with me with the first year of this journey, and everything is going to get covered in one way, shape, or form. Like it's going to get covered at some point, because as I'm going through it, even if I miss something, it's probably going to come back to bite me in the butt, and I'm going to say, oh wait, don't make the same mistake that I made. You guys should do this. So either way, it's going to be helpful to somebody in some way. And that's really the whole gist of it. But you can't tackle everything. For me, when I first started looking, first I wanted to see where all of the food trucks were going. So in my area, I kind of just put up, in Google or whatever like that, I put in like food truck events, because my first line of thinking was like, follow the food trucks. I'm just taking you guys, it has since changed a tad bit, but I'm just taking you guys down my line of thinking. Follow the food trucks. So it took me to like a website where for my area, it basically had like all the different food trucks and where they would be. So it was basically for fans of those particular food trucks. So you could say, oh, okay, that's going to be Little Johnny's Barbecue. Okay, he's going to be here every Wednesday, here every Thursday. Oh, okay, Ricky's Ice Cream. He's going to be here on Friday nights, and then he's going to be there throughout the summer. So it gives people a way to kind of track and follow some of their favorite food trucks. Well, that's great for somebody coming into the business, because when you're trying to figure out where are some of the best events to try to hit, if you can kind of follow where some of the food trucks are going and where some of the events that they're targeting, most likely those events will have tents or have concession stands or some other vendors. So that's a great place to start, to just kind of see where some of these events are. You do have to do a lot of legwork. You have to contact these places. You want to first check out their website, because you want to be able to ask educated questions. You don't want to just skip over the website and then just go like cold calling all these places when the information is most likely on their website. Look for the vendors or sponsorship tab, and typically they'll have like a vendor application there. They'll have information from their other events. If there's a cost associated, they want to justify that cost. So if they're charging you $300 to get in, $500 to get in, $2,000 to get in, they want to justify that cost. So they will typically have all of the kind of FAQ portion there, so that they're answering your questions ahead of time. If you want something specific, or you just want to speak to someone one-on-one, what I recommend is reaching out through email first. I really like reaching out through email first as it pertains to these events, because I think it gives you the opportunity to present your business in a very professional way. You want to make sure you have a signature set up, your logo set up. Obviously, make sure like your website and things are working. You want to have like, if your name is Lisa and it's Lisa's Italian Ice, Lisa at Lisa's Italian Ice, or Becky at Lisa's Italian Ice, Roy at Lisa's Italian Ice. So you want to have those professional handles. It just sets the right tone. In another email we can kind of, if you care, we can kind of talk about just some of the etiquette when you're kind of reaching out and talking to some of these people. I come from the world of event planning, and so my world completely like existed through email. Just that's just the God's honest truth. And I mean, it was on a corporate level, so everything was just email. I mean, nobody has time to talk, nobody wants to talk, everything is email. And so you really have to, you just want to make sure you are being polite, you want to make sure your grammar is correct. You've got tools like Grammarly and other things that can help you if you struggle in that area. I know, it happens to the best of us, but you have tools that can help you. You want to be as professional and as real as possible. And I like the combination of both. You want to be professional. So like I told you, having your email laid out, having everything look good, your website looks nice, you've got a signature on your email, but you want to be real. You don't want it to seem like you're just sending this out to 50 billion people. From this point of view, I think you can get very, very narrow because you want to make sure that you're addressing the right person. So if you saw on there, if they left their contact information, use it. If the event got posted, they're looking for vendors and Rebecca posted it, email, hey, Rebecca, make sure you're using that person's name. Always introduce yourself. They do not know you. Don't send out an email. Hey, Rebecca, just wanted to know if I could be that doesn't help. Rebecca doesn't know you. You want events that you can really build relationships. So one thing that you want to think about is what area do you really want to target? You don't want to start off because if you're depending on what area you are in, but all areas have events going on all year long. And even if you have a seasonal product, you have so many hacks and so many ways around it, which we can talk about again in another video. Trying to stay on track here is always so much information, but you want to try to zero in on your area because it could be, especially in the summertime in some of these places, or if you're on the West Coast where the weather is just beautiful like all the time, you want to either find a place where you can be like all the time. So some people will pay and they'll build the relationships and have the correct permits and licenses to be able to like post up like at a particular park or right by the lake or somewhere, so they can have a very specific area that they can sell in. So that's always a really, really great thing. Or if you are just working the event circuit, pick an area. Maybe you do a radius, maybe you do a 10-mile radius from where you live. Because keep in mind, coming from that point of view of the entrepreneur, gas. Starting off, you may have to leave an event and go home for supplies, or, you don't want to start off and now you're 45 minutes away from the event. You're an hour away from the event. You don't want to always do that. You want to try to think, okay, can I stay in a 10-mile radius, 15-mile radius of my home? That way, if people want catering or delivery services, I can cover it, or I can waive the price if need be. If I ever need to go home for more supplies, or if we need to make more product, I mean, who knows? I've seen events where they literally are so prepared that they ran out and then had like a person walking up with the next batch. That's a little harder to do when you're an hour away. So just think about, speaking of which, always have a backup plan for these events. Always have a backup plan. Have a backup plan to store your product, to have more product, and then have a plan C, more product on top of more product. So let's say the inventory ran out and then the inventory ran out. I mean, at some point, especially if it's later in the event, you just got to let it go. But as much as you can, try to have the product on hand that you need. But pick a radius, try and hit that radius first, and it will help you also narrow down events so that now you're not reaching out to events that are an hour away, 2 hours away. Now, sometimes you got to have a really big event. I know for us in our area, it's some really big events that are an hour away, 2 hours away. So those are events that, like, yeah, if we want to do that, we have to plan for it. If it's out of town, we have to, maybe book a hotel. This is when you start really making some money, and it really becomes important for you to get out here, get the name out, be seen. A lot of times when you're doing those huge events, it's a little more about exposure. Yes, money is being made. Yes, good money is being made, but it's the exposure. Having a booth or having a concession stand next to some of the big players in the game, it can really be a great start for you. So that can happen later on, but starting off, cap the amount of money that you want to spend as far as event fees, because keep in mind, you still got to get your supplies. You still got to make sure your event setup looks good. You may have to pay for help. You still have gas. You have other costs. So you don't want right off the bat to get too many expensive events. Let's say you got 10 events on your board. Try and maybe make 3 or 4 of those events free, because free events, you really don't have a lot to lose. So any events that you can find that are free, that are discounted, try to get in on those events early. Checking with like your local community centers or recreation centers, or even like if you have like a Metro Park Zoo, those areas are really, really great because they book events, but you got to get them early. They book so fast. So like right now we're in October. Some of these events, they're already lining up their entire calendar for next year. So you got to get in early. If you're contacting these people, and I talked about that in another podcast, actually, get in and get early, because if you're contacting these people a month before or weeks before an event, it's too late. The good events are taken, they're booked. The regulars that they book every year are kind of already grandfathered in. The good events leave a small space for newcomers to kind of wiggle their way in. And the best way to do that is to slide in and get in there early, because once that window closes, they have their people who have been coming there 6 years in a row, 5 years in a row, 7 years in a row. They aren't going to bump those people who have the name recognition, who have the fan base. They're not going to bump those people and take a chance on a new business. And if they do, they'll leave a very small slither for new businesses. So, if they've got 50 different vendors at an event, they might have like basically 20 to 30 repeat, well-known food trucks or concession stands, and then they may reserve the remaining, 15 to 20 slots, maybe even less than that. I've seen people, they barely do 5% that they're leaving for new businesses to come in as a vendor.